So, when people are introducing flat Earth to somebody new, they talk about the Antarctic ice wall. And when you say that, what's the first thing you think of?
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones, right? And that's not what. And I kind of think that series was made to brainwash people into not being able to think when they hear ice wall.
Yeah.
Antarctica is the highest land on Earth. Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens when you have a patch of land with a low impression, with a dent in it, a little bit of a hole? You pour water. The water goes into that, and it's called a puddle, right? Expand that indentation on the land to a couple hundred feet, a couple thousand feet. It's called a pond. A couple miles. It's called a lake. Now make it thousands of miles across this indentation, and it's called an ocean.
Yeah. Wow.
So, and it's the definition of this indentation is a basin. So we live in the Antarctic Basin. So you can sail around, you can go around. When you hit the shoreline, there happens to be a cliff of ice, which you can call a wall. But to me, a wall has two sides. It's just a cliff to the Antarctic plateau that goes on for a couple hundred miles in all directions. And then there's mountains that go 5 miles into the sky, and no one's allowed to explore there. So if you look at that image that you just put up, that pink line is the 60th parallel, and nobody is allowed to bring fuel beyond that point. Okay, so even if they let you go, you couldn't go anywhere. You're not going to make it anywhere. But it's the only treaty that's been in effect since 1958, the United Nations. Nobody can independently explore Antarctica. So when you're explaining it to somebody, if you show them this picture, and I'll make the pictures on the Flat Earth Podcast Facebook page. It's a top post. Take that picture, save it to your phone, save it to your computer, make it your back desktop, post it so you always have it. And then you can just show them that. And that gives them that stops them from thinking a disc in space, falling off the edge,
Exactly.
Game of Thrones. It takes all of that off the table.
What do you think is over there? Because one of the things that honestly woke me up the most to this is the Antarctic Treaty. I think that's even more than 8 inches per mile squared or the vacuum or hot air balloons. It's the Antarctic Treaty is so illogical, where it's like, okay, the one thing that all the nations in the world have agreed upon since the 1950s is that no one's allowed to go to Antarctica, fly over Antarctica, and the reason is because they don't want to spook the penguins. That's true, guys. You're not allowed to explore. There's one base that you can go on a field trip if you pay a ton of money, and that is a way to use a spell to say, no, I got a picture from Antarctica, it can't work. It's one dot. We're talking about, well, I used to think it was a continent, like circular. Now, we're talking about the entire circumference of the Earth you're not allowed to go to. And then, like, on election night 2016, John Kerry goes to Antarctica. The Pope has been to Antarctica.
Right.
Putin has been to Antarctica. The head of the Orthodox Church has been to It's like no one can explain it to me other than they're hiding one of the most insane realities of our world there. And so when people just go, I mean, the penguins would get spooked. I mean, how dare you? If we just go there, I mean, we'll make a mess of the place. You know how valuable ice is. And so I'm like, okay, this is one of the biggest lies that's ever been perpetuated on the world. And that's why it's like, I can't imagine people not being curious about that. And then some people think that they're hiding something like, the Nephilim or something. My thing isn't, what's your theory? It's, do you even think that's interesting? Like the people that are like, oh, I mean, if they let people go, I mean, they don't make a mess of the place. I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? And so,
right.
And so what do you think? Not that we can know because you're not even allowed to do expeditions. You're not allowed. There's no commercial flights over it. It's clearly not the bottom of a fucking sphere.
Here's the thing. People, the number one argument is people say thousands of people go there. Yeah, there's like 15 different companies all owned by the same company. It costs like $10,000 to $15,000 to go there for 3 days. Okay, you explore just this little peninsula. Okay, maybe they take you a few miles inland to a pole stuck in the ground, tell you it's a South Pole, but it's not. It's just a pole.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they show you some penguins and they tell you a story and then you're out of there. And it's a whole thing, and you don't really get to see anything. It's like going to the shoreline of a lake in Kansas and then saying, oh, I saw Philadelphia. No, you didn't. You just saw the shoreline of the lake. You didn't even see all of Kansas.
Oh, I know.
Okay?
And here's something to do. Why don't you? Someone could do this simply with any compass. You could. You know how your compass points to magnetic north, assuming that the compass point is south, because that's how magnets work. How about you make that point north and see if it points to magnetic south when you're anywhere near there, and see if there is one fixed dot of a
compasses
South Pole.
don't work in Antarctica.
Exactly. Because it only is going to the North Pole. There is no way to orient a compass. Like if people lived in the southern hemisphere on a sphere, why wouldn't they have a compass that has a southern tip so that they know exactly where due south is? Well, I mean, if you go explore it, we'll just make a mess of the place. It doesn't make any sense. Every north has a south.
Yeah, you asked me what I think is beyond that. So if you look at that image, the little white ice ring, that's hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles of ice. What's beyond that? Well, we know that there's mountains beyond that go higher than any mountains on Earth, I think. Is the dome attached to the top of the mountain? Is there a dome attached beyond the mountain? Is there a dome at all? Is it possible that there's other puddles, other basins with other suns? Some people talk about Mars and Venus being a sun and a moon in a distant puddle, and the Mars and Venus that we see in our sky is just a reflection in our dome. These are all possibilities, speculation. But again, because nobody is allowed to go there and look, we don't know the answer.
I know. That's what's the most frustrating part about some of this stuff. Now it doesn't frustrate me, but for a while it did. When I'm like, well, we think that it's this, and they're like, prove it. It's like, we're legally not allowed to on any level, like every single thing that we can do to prove it, like getting an independent rocket, whatever, or go to Antarctica, explore. You're legally not allowed to under penalty of death by every nation in the entire world. Do you think they may be hiding something?
So people, the non-thinkers, trolls, whatever, they'll say there's so much land out there, they can't stop you from exploring it. You can't, even if they allowed you, the terrain, the distances, the conditions are nearly impossible without hundreds of millions of dollars of equipment and stuff. So you can't even go do that. But again, for those of you that really want to understand why you can't go there, you got to watch the video by Taboo Conspiracy 2 called Sorry, Antarctica is Closed.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, it's linked on below that picture on the Flat Earth Podcast Facebook page. It's a 30-minute video. If you watch that, this guy did hundreds and hundreds of hours of research that you don't have to do. He condensed it into 30 minutes. You watch that, and you'll never say, well, why don't you just go explore Antarctica? Because you can't. Physically, you can't. Economically, you can't. Spiritually, you can't. I mean, it's nearly impossible.
Since Game of Thrones, I think one of the main purposes of it was to establish a wall and then something very scary on the other side. And then the realm on this side to make people, it's almost like Truman Show where they keep hammering, if you go over there, that's where the wildlings are. And it's like, what do you think? Do you think that is a way to, and extraterrestrials hiding in plain sight, where it's like, extraterrestrials. Oh, what does that mean? Space aliens. No, it means extra terra, more land. And I think that it is a absolute no-brainer reality that the people that are in this grand illusion, this great show that's trying to constantly scare us and keep us in a lowered state, our souls in a lowered state, have access to that area that we don't. Because they keep, Big Bear, you're saying, they literally go to Antarctica on major days. Like that, and that makes zero sense unless they're trying to show you that's exit stage left, return stage right.
The only thing I can say for sure about Antarctica is that there's answers there. I don't know what they are, but there's definitely answers there.
Yeah. What are some of your theories? People are drowning in gravy right now.
My theory is, I don't know. You know what? I don't know. All I know is that we live in the Antarctic Basin. Water lays flat. It's obvious. It's clear. The model works. We don't live on a spinning ball. And are there more lands? Are there other races of people out there? I think there are. Are they within our dome? I don't know the answer to that. Is there a dome? I would say yes, because of the second law of thermodynamics, that you have to have an enclosure. I don't know how big that enclosure is. Maybe it's 100 times bigger than our known land. Yeah. Maybe it's just fits right to the Antarctic mountains. I don't know. Maybe there's other domes out there. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. But what I do know is we don't live on a spinning godless rock in the middle of space. I mean, hearing me say this, you've grown up knowing God since you were a child, right?
Yeah, I had 20 years of hedonistic spinning ball.
I had 50 years of that. 50.
Right.
Okay. And it's not wanting to believe. It's not wanting to feel important. It's none of that. I want the truth, no matter what the heck it is. I just want to know the truth so I can live my life knowing that we live in this beautiful designed world where we are at the center of creation. It was built for the human. Okay. This is an amazing, amazing ride, Ron. I also believe that we chose to be here at this time and not knowing what was going to happen. So enjoy the ride. I love roller coasters. Okay. Paige hates roller coasters.
Right.
So going over that hill, we're going over that hill right now. The back car is just about to come over the top, and we're accelerating towards the bottom. And who knows whether it's going to go left or right or back up again.
What do you think's going on with penguins? They seem so Freemasonic.
I think penguins are gods. No, I'm kidding.
Do you think that they? I mean, because they're so funny looking too, and so odd. Do you think that they're the Night's Watch?
You know, I've never even thought about it, but now there's a rabbit hole that I don't even want to go down because I don't have time.
Because they made so many movies and so many cultural references to penguins, and they're these absurd, flightless, fat little birds.
So, yeah, my thought on the reason they've made the Emperor Penguin videos is to make you never want to go deep into Antarctica because you'll freeze to death and die. You know, those videos of the penguins huddling together, you know, how horrible it is. And if the eggs touch the ground for 10 seconds, they die. That makes you not want to go to Antarctica. So,
and they're called Emperor. They're called Emperor penguins.
Yeah, there's something to that.
Like they don't look imperial at all. Like it's like calling them Overlord penguins. You know, it's like, what the hell are they guarding there? They don't have happy feet, I'll tell you that. Yeah, I mean, the Antarctic thing is really sparking a lot of adventurous behavior in men. A lot of dudes want to go to Antarctica now. And people are just so wrapped up in debt and corona that they just don't have time to even think about it. Dude, forget space. Like, everybody's so obsessed with, like, Star Trek and Mars and can we go to another star and Avatar? Dude, the most exciting adventure you can possibly imagine is Antarctica. Like, I can't even imagine what's over there.
What about the North Pole?
Is that gravy? Tell me some gravy about the North Pole.
We're not allowed to fly over it. That, it's possible that our sun was born in the North. Sounds familiar? There could be a whole nother land there. I don't know. You know, Martin Kenney thinks that there's another layer to the dome in the North. How big is it? Is it I don't know, but they've convinced us with that National Geographic show where the guys went to the North Pole with the dogs and they froze to death on the way and the dogs were dying, and then they get there and it's dark and it's 140 below zero, blowing 50 miles an hour. They're losing their fingers. You know, all that was is to make you say, I never want to go to the North Pole.
It's so
but then
true.
There's stories of ship captains that have gone to the North Pole or up that way, and all of a sudden the ice breaks up and it gets warm and they have issues telling the difference between the water and the air. Things kind of mix together. To me, I think, and I think it's the same in Antarctica. I theorize, this is just me speculating, I have zero proof, that we live on this negatively charged electric plane, whatever you want to call it, but it's got a negative charge to it. That establishes a down.
Yeah.
Relative density sorts everything out from there. You know, you take a pound of helium and a pound of metal and you drop them, the helium one goes up and the metal goes down.
How dare you? That goes against my worldview. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So when I believe that when you get closer to the edge or the center, which could be another edge, that maybe the negative charge changes a little bit. Maybe it mixes. Maybe you don't know which way is down. Maybe, I don't know, but that's a theory that I have. You can do experiments that may simulate that. Zach Zambala, Good Times for All channel, he does some experiments. He's got one of those electric generators, a DeGraff generator, whatever it's called. Sorry about that, Zach. And he shows that he charges these plates and things get sucked to it. So again, the whole rapture thing, if the Earth just loses its negative charge, things are going to start floating away, in my opinion. Science experiment can replicate that. Is that really what's going on? I don't know. We're just trying to figure this place out.
Moon Jazz Bear brought something up, and I've heard this from some other Scandinavian bears, that at a certain point of extreme north, animals will migrate north.
Really?
Not south. Yeah, like there's a latitude where animals will migrate north, and I think that says something about temperature.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean,
so there's something there. There's something, the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
It's who knows?
Who knows?
BB
single-handedly allow me to breathe. Well, Howie, I think you're breathing on your own, but I get it. All right, let's